Today's video is brought to you by the fine folks at Callan Industries. For more than 4 centuries, Callan has been the trusted name in all things fire and fury. Your ancestors cut their teeth piloting the Riflemen, Wolverine and Shadowhawk, while their descendants bravely defended planet and home with the Partisan and Ontos tanks. Callan did more than just forge the tools necessary to provide a strong defense. They fought alongside you. As we march forward through the 32nd century, we ask to continue building that trust with our latest and greatest designs, sure to leave an impression. Newer battle mechs like the Templar and Jägermech 3 continue to push the boundaries of technology, while classic designs such as the Penetrator, Griffin, and Hornet are each receiving much appreciated upgrades. Now all we need on the team to find victory is you. Contact your local Callan Industries representative today and you're already one step closer to battlefield dominance. Other mechs continued spilling from the ship. Lieutenant Denikin's Cataphract, Erica Carver's Dervish, the oddly shaped menacing form of the PTR-4D Penetrator, a brand new 75-ton mech design, only now beginning to appear on the battlefields of the Inner Sphere in the wake of the clan invasion. Grayson wasn't sure who was piloting that one. There was Lieutenant Bergstrom's Valkyrie from 1st Company's Recon Lance. Strange how comforting it was, he thought, to see his comrades again, arrayed in full panoply of war. He'd been alone, it seemed, for so very long. Operation Excalibur by William H. Keith, Jr. I've been looking forward to sharing the story of the Penetrator, and not because of this battlemech's extremely aggressive name. Calm down. This 75-ton battlemech was spawned within the panic of an inner sphere in peril. Not since the First and Second Succession Wars had so many planets felt impending doom, though this time the threat was from without rather than the usual Great House antics. The clans represented an existential threat to the long-standing order, and it was up to the brave military-industrial complex to monetize that worry and save the day. A litany of new battlemech designs were proposed to directly meet the clan threat. Some took advantage of the more plentiful Star League technology, and some even used it effectively. Others sought to mimic the clan machines that had cut a wide swath across Lyran, Rosselhague, and Caretan territory. The PTR-4D Penetrator emerged from the chaos as one of the more restrained yet savvy battlemech designs. While engineers may have been tempted to go all out with extra-light engines and ferrofibrous armor, the Penetrator team focused instead on durability, sustainability, and focused violence. Callan Industries had a lot going for it during this dangerous time. The company's long production history included gems like the Wolverine, Rifleman, and Enforcer, and their production facilities were far from the clan invasion corridors, so they could continue their work largely without interruption. Their production lines on Talon, a moon within the Wernkey system, were deep within Federated Suns territory and were ready to be tailored to the needs of a brand new clan-busting design. Durability and focused application of advanced technology were the orders of the day for the Penetrator project. The 75-ton battlemech eschewed endosteel and the XL engine in favor of a traditional Crucis G frame and Vlar 300 standard fusion engine. This limited the top speed of the mech to just 65 km per hour, but as a compromise, 4 Anderson 398 jump jets were installed into the Penetrator's legs. While the mech would have issues keeping up with the faster battlemechs of the era, including the proposed nemesis, the clan's Nova, the designers did have it in mind when designing the rest of the battlemech. The 13 tons of standard Duralex plate armor didn't max out the possible coverage on the 75-ton mech, but it was within spitting range. The sales team at Kallio could boast about the Penetrator's ability to absorb considerable amounts of damage before it would be considered combat ineffective. With its weapon split evenly on each side of the mech, knocking out one arm and one side torso only partially dealt with the mech as a threat. The two diverse optics Sunbeam extended range large lasers were the proposed solution to the Penetrator's limited speed. Operating as a skirmisher, the Penetrator could hit targets at long range with the large lasers and not have to worry too much about heat, as the included 12 double heat sinks could wick away all but the heat generated by movement. Even at the more typical mid and short range, the ER large lasers enjoyed that beneficial range profile. There, I said nice things about the Inner Sphere ER large lasers. Mark it down, I need credit. Before you count the Penetrator as a long-range threat and move on, it needs to be noted that the rest of the loadout betrays the mech's true nature as a close-range brawler. The 6 medium pulse lasers split evenly between the left and right torso drastically increased the Penetrator's lethality, especially against small and fast-moving targets thanks to the laser's improved accuracy. While the Inner Sphere spec medium pulse lasers paled in comparison to their clan tech cousins, 36 possible damage and 6 damage chunks at -2 accuracy boost refused to be ignored. Even tough, heavy, and assault battle mechs could not ignore that kind of persistent fire for too long. The last addition to the Penetrator was an anti-missile system set into the center torso, which fed from a single ton of ammunition alongside it. While the utility is often debated, the AMS did provide some defense from incoming missiles of all types, and that's not a bad thing, as more and more mechs at the time were spotted fielding streak technology. Plus, the clan mechs were stomping around firing LRMs at short range, so it didn't hurt to be able to knock a few out of the sky when possible. Once all the bolts were tightened and wires properly zip-tied, the PTR 4D Penetrator was run through the gamut of testing and demonstrating that it could be an effective hunter. Extra time and expense was incurred to make sure that this mech would stand up to a wide variety of situations and threats. Only then was Kallio confident to approach buyers. The most logical client was the Federated Commonwealth, as production facilities were within the realm. Initially, the Fedcom representatives were wary, following assertions that the Penetrator could stand up to clan forces. The inability to use all of the energy weaponry without rapidly overheating and shutting down the mech was a fair concern. Eventually, the testing data, along with some backroom favor trading, resulted in an exclusive production contract with the Fedcoms for an initial production run followed by 2 more. By July of 3053, the first deployable Penetrators were packed into dropships and delivered to Fedcom units. Archer fired at the Kraken at long range with his pulse lasers, in 3 separate paired salvos. A third of his shots missed, but the others tore into the side of the already damaged mech, ripping away what armor remained on its left side and arm. The air in the cockpit was suddenly almost too hot to breathe, and he felt a gurgle of his cooling vest as it began to pump, bleeding away some of the heat from his body. He watched as the behemoth shook off the last elemental, then fell on its side, crushing the genetically engineered warrior under its massive bulk. Operation Audacity by Blaine Lee Pardoe. Most of the brand new Penetrators joined the flood of equipment and munitions sent to the units stationed on the Lyran front to reinforce against clan strikes above the Tukiad truce line. Reports suggest that it was able to perform its job and earned its reputation for being durable. It also didn't hurt that it was also seen as more of an economical purchase over some of the other heavy mechs in the market that contained pricey technology. The 2 most significant critiques were the mech's persistent heat issues and the placement of the anti-missile system ammunition in the center torso, which did occasionally result in the mech taking additional damage when the bin was critically hit. Overall, the feedback was positive, and there weren't any crippling faults that required overhauls or shipping emergency refit kits. Credit to the Kallio team for making sure it was ready to go on day 1. One of the more notable Penetrator Mechwarriors was Lauren Jaffray. Born in 3025, Jaffray had strong family connections to the Northwind Highlanders, but he did not grow up within their ranks. Jaffray's history with the legendary mercenary unit was complicated by his grandfather's split with the unit when Lauren was just a toddler. This resulted in Jaffray growing up within the Capellan military educational system, with strong loyalty to House Liao. After graduating from the Cian Martial Academy in 3047, Joffre gained valuable combat experience, and he quickly built a reputation as a young man for seeking out creative tactical solutions on the battlefield. He was eventually recruited by Chancellor Sun Tzu Liao to join the infamous Death Commandos, when Sun Tzu took the throne in 3052. It was easy to see why someone with Joffre's talent and skill set was chosen for the unit, though there were some long-term plans in play. In 3057, the Chancellor tapped Joffre for a unique mission that would take him back to Northwind, where he was tasked with using his lineage to his advantage in encouraging the Northwind Highlanders to abandon their connections to the Federated Commonwealth. Luring the mercenaries away from their enemies of the Capellans was just the first step. The second was to bring in 2 battalions of Death Commandos to eradicate the Highlanders entirely. While he was successful with the first part, Joffre had a crisis of conscience concerning the plans to obliterate the unit. Forced to make the tough call, he defected from the Capellan Confederation and joined up with the Highlanders. Later, Major Joffre led the Kilsith Guards battalion of Stirling's Fusiliers in an ill-fated contract with the Draconis Combine on Wayside 5. Instead of clearing out the expected Clan Smoke Jaguar garrison, the mercenaries discovered they were facing an entire galaxy which was on planet. Only through guile and the use of his experience with the Death Commandos was Joffre able to leverage the defeat into survival for the Highlanders. Joffre's Penetrator was an original stock 4D loadout he named Phobos, which ended up serving him well on Wayside against the Smoke Jaguars. In an attempt to liberate one of the Highlander dropships that had been scattered in the unit's original landing on the planet, Joffre charged a Smoke Jaguar Warhawk. This did not go over well as the Penetrator took extensive damage from the Clan Mech's ERPPCs. The important part is that it survived the strikes and was able to close in and trigger a hydrogen tank explosion which disabled the Warhawk. The Penetrator was quickly repaired and Joffre was able to pilot it the next day to stop a headhunting mission organized by the Smoke Jaguars. Though Major Joffre would end up using several other battlemechs in his career, including eventually a Cauldronborn, the Penetrator got him through one of the most perilous missions of his career. Good on ya. As Kai worked his way up the gantry, he allowed himself a little laugh. The Callan Industries representative had not been as ready to give Kai one of the new penetrators as he had led Galen to believe. It had taken Kai pointing out that the St. Ives Compact would doubtless give extra weight to any positive report he made concerning the machine when next they needed to purchase new battlemechs. With that consideration in the picture, Callan had suddenly become more generous with equipment and technical support. Assumption of Risk by Michael A. Stackpole. The first rethink of the Penetrator's design was spotted in 3056 and designated the PTR-4F. It was structurally the same as the 4D, including armor, heat sinks, and other details, but sought to address the persistent heat issues by replacing the 2 ER large lasers with a pair of long-range missile 10 racks, aided by Artemis 4 fire control systems. Each launcher had its own dedicated 1 ton of ammunition stored in the side torsos. It also shed 2 of the medium pulse lasers to make the math work out. While the overall damage potential was roughly comparable to the 2 ER large lasers at long range, obviously the LRM damage was scattered. Heat issues were largely nullified, though there was still a price to pay if the Penetrator 4F did close on a target. The minimum range for the LRM launchers, mixed with the loss of 2 of the medium pulse lasers, made for a much less painful experience for the Penetrator's target. At best, the 4F was a side grade as it introduced vulnerabilities with the LRM ammunition in each side torso and provided negligible benefit. Available records suggest that the 4F wasn't very popular and it was a pretty rare sight. Just 2 years later, in 3058, the PTR-6M took a different route to address the heat issues. A full ton of armor was shaved off from the mech and 2 of the medium pulse lasers were removed to allow the addition of 5 additional double heat sinks which were crammed into the side torso open critical locations. This definitely addressed the heat issues at long range and allowed for alpha striking with the remaining lasers while on the run and only ending up at 8 heat, which is not super great if your movement profile is only 464, but it could be a lot worse. Personally, I would rather sacrifice one of the ER large lasers for 3 double heat sinks and 2 standard medium lasers, but I am a bit of a contrarian. With the Penetrator being largely found within the armed forces of the Federated Commonwealth, it's no surprise that the FedCom Civil War ended up pitting the mech against itself more than once. The traits that had helped the mech perform well against the clans ended up benefiting the Penetrator during the knockdown, drag-out Civil War fights as well. Units that were forced to fight a guerrilla campaign saw the Penetrator's energy-heavy loadout as a blessing, while other mechs that relied upon strong logistics lines faltered. The FedCom Civil War also brought us our next big-name Penetrator Mechwarrior, one General Archer Christofori. Born in 3020, Archer Christofori began his career fighting in the armed forces of the Federated Commonwealth. He gained valuable experience within the 10th Lyran Guards during the fight against the Jade Falcons on Twycross. Later, he contributed to the expulsion of the Smoke Jaguars from the Inner Sphere in Operation Bulldog and ultimately fought on Huntress, earning himself a Star League Medal of Honor for his actions. Archer's story took a dark turn as the Federated Commonwealth fell into civil war. His sister, Andrea, was vocal in her opposition to Catherine Steiner Davion, and it ended up costing her her life at the hands of the 15 Arcturian Guards. This obviously did not sit well with Christofori, who was in charge of the planetary militia on Thorin. He, along with his unit, declared their intent to defect to the Davion side of the conflict, and went to war in his modified Penetrator 4D against the Lyran Loyalists. Christofori's Penetrator lacks an official record sheet as far as I could find, but pulling info from Legends 2 and page 27 and 28 of Measure of a Hero states that both of the machine's ER large lasers were swapped out for clan spec versions of the same weapon. The 2 spare tons were invested in additional double heat sinks, which I think we can assume were set into the side torsos. Obviously, this refit made the Christofori Penetrator much more dangerous for all the reasons you can expect from the shift to clan spec weaponry. It's solid, and since I couldn't find a source with an official record sheet, I went ahead and included the PDF copy that I made with the MF version in the usual spot in the video notes below if you want to give it a try. Christofori and the Penetrator he named Katya continued their fight well into the 3060s as the head of an independent unit named Archer's Avengers. After helping to blunt the Jade Falcon incursion in 3065, Christofori's luck ran out on Baker 3 when the Avengers and the Knights of St. Cameron sought to crush the Jade Falcon 10th Provisional Garrison Cluster. When their landing zone was attacked by 2 clusters worth of clanners instead of the much lighter resistance, Christofori led a charge in order to buy the rest of the Avengers time to withdraw. It was reported that he used Katya's jump jets to leap over the assembling Falcons and drew their attention as he cut into them with his combined 8 lasers. After making sure his unit was able to lift off, Christofori was able to keep his damaged battlemech together for long enough to intentionally set off its fusion reactor to go critical and detonate in among the Jade Falcons. Sweat was pouring down his face. He swung his large lasers up and brought the targeting reticle onto the Stuka. It was almost invisible in the night, but painted up perfectly on his targeting and tracking system. He fired both lasers, which sent a wave of heat over the cockpit. The extended range weapons bore in on the Stuka, hitting its right wing armor enough to leave a glow in the air as it swung away. You could say what you want about the clans, Hopkin thought, but they made weapons he'd have killed for when still in active service. Measure of a Hero by Blaine Lee Pardoe. The PTR-6S variant that hit the scene in 3059 was another niche version of the Penetrator which really should have been designated the 4S for as little was changed. The mech was largely the same except for 1.5 tons of armor which was shaved off so that a Guardian ECM could be installed into the right torso. Yes, this makes our 6S our Operation Sneaky Sneak Penetrator, which just sounds wrong, so we'll move on. If you need a 75-ton mech with an ECM, you could do worse than the Penetrator 6S. The next official variant arrived in 3066, and it was a field refit which grew popular among the Davion supporters in the FedCom Civil War. Possibly originally done to take advantage of locally sourced weaponry, the 6T replaced the 6 medium pulse lasers from the 4D with 6 ER medium lasers. This bought enough mass for 2 additional double heat sinks and a right torso targeting computer. While this did shave off a little close-range accuracy, the targeting computer dulled those effects and improved the mech's effective range in the midfield. The heat generation issues persisted, but at least with 14 double heat sinks, both the ER large lasers could be fired on the run without any heat buildup. From what we've seen so far, the PTR-6T presents a very strong case for the Penetrator in its ideal form. As much fun as pulse lasers can be, the inner sphere spec ones are burdened by a lack of range, which makes them easier to yank in favor of other options. 3 humanoid clan Hankus moved south to lengthen the clan line and make it tough for the jackals to roll up that flank. Stephen Applegarth trotted his boxy, bird-legged Penetrator out in the jackal's wake. The twin large lasers his mech sported could provide some long-range cover for the smaller mechs, and if the Hankus didn't scatter by the time he caught up with the jackals, the Penetrator's array of pulse lasers could prove devastating to them. Prince of Havoc by Michael A. Stackpole. As we march further down the timeline, the Penetrator begins to show up in most of the militaries of the Inner Sphere and even mercenary units, either through direct sales from Callan Weapons Industries or by salvage or the secondary market. Its reputation as a survivor on the battlefield among more fragile machines fueled the interest and kept the mech in the fight and holding market share. Eventually, the bigwigs at Callan decided it was time to take another look at the now classic design. It still feels a little weird to describe a 3055 TRO era mech as classic, but how time passes. One of those big issues that had developed over the past few decades for the battle mech armed with only energy weapons was the proliferation of new reflective armor technology. While it didn't render the target immune to the effects of lasers, it was a great way to end up in the morgue if all of your weapons were rendered half as effective. For the Penetrator that was released in 3133, the issue was partially dodged just by giving the PTR-7D 12.5 tons of its own reflective armor. Now you might argue that doesn't really address the issue, but that's why we have one more variant after this one. Patience, young grasshoppers. This time the Penetrator was going to receive the bells and whistles, including new endosteel structure as well as an extra light gyro which shaved off 1.5 tons of mass from the machine in exchange for space in the center torso. The 12 double heat sinks remained, as well as the traditional 464 movement profile. Besides the reflective armor, the 7D's major selling points were the twin snub-nosed PPCs split between the arms that both benefited from actuator enhancement systems, which improved the accuracy of weapons installed into those limbs. The snub-nosed PPC already benefited from being considered short-range at 9 hexes, and the AES just reinforced their fun. The classic 6 medium pulse lasers split between the side torsos made their return, which further bolstered the Penetrator 7D's role as a dedicated short-range brawler and hunter of everything lighter than it. You wouldn't want to be anywhere near this thing if you're in a mech that relies upon speed to survive. Heat generation issues did persist, but in the right moment when the target is right there, you can cool your mech down while your opponent has been rendered into smoldering carbon. The only change I would make is pulling 2 of the medium pulse lasers in favor of 2 ER medium lasers and adding 2 additional double heat sinks. The 7D is a solid fighter, and it's definitely worth a try. The Minutemen are ready, said Hawkeye Hogan, commanding the 3rd Thorin Regiment. Good, Archer said, angling his own Penetrator slightly as his command company formed up on his sides. Tonight, dinner's on the Lyran Alliance. All units, charge! His 75-ton Penetrator hop-stepped forward like a bird, rushing nearly 250 meters before his sensors began to scream about targets. They had caught the Jade Falcons all right, apparently concentrating for an assault on the surrounded Alliance force. He was sure that the clan sensors were painting his units as targets as well, but the Falcon commander was faced with a deadly and suddenly desperate situation. Operation Audacity by Blaine Lee Pardoe. Just 11 years later, in 3144, Callan took another bite at the apple by releasing the newest Penetrator on our timeline. The PTR-8D looked a lot like the 7D, but carried a few new bells and whistles. The endosteel, engine, and jump jets were retained to maintain the mech's primary purpose and character, but instead of an XL gyro like the 7D, the 8D went the other direction with a compact gyro, which was heavier but presented a smaller target, and opened up a couple of critical hit locations. This was necessary as the 8D is jam-packed, with only one remaining open critical location in the head. Once again, the mech was blessed with reflective armor, but now carried 13 tons instead of 12.5. The last structural change was the addition of a 13th double heatsink. The weapons loadout finally did tackle that issue with being an all-energy build thanks to the addition of 2 large re-engineered lasers split between the arms. While it looks a lot like a standard large laser, the large re-engineered laser did 9 damage out to 15 hexes for 9 generated heat. However, its biggest selling points included a -1 accuracy boost as well as curiously advantageous ability to do full damage to hardened, ferrolamellar, and laser reflective armors. The two big lasers were backed up by 6 standard medium lasers in their typical left and right torso orientation, and the traditional center torso anti-missile system was converted over to a laser AMS to remove that bothersome ammunition. Sure, it generated 7 heat if it triggered, but that's what the left torso coolant pod can be used for if the time is right. Overall, heat generation continued to be an issue, but only at very close range with the medium lasers in play. Some things never change, Penetrator? Well, here's where I get to grind back. Doc thumbed the top triggers of his joysticks. The large lasers built into the Penetrator's arms stabbed verdant beams through the smoke and hit the Galahad as the man-like mech came upright again. One beam melted a channel through the armor of the mech's right thigh. The other struck the Galahad in the head, bubbling up all but the last bit of armor shielding the pilot. The clan mech raised its Gauss rifles and returned Doc's fire. One slug went wide, striking sparks from the canyon's stone floor. The ricochet shot back between the Penetrator's legs, but did no damage. The other slug slammed into the Penetrator's right arm, sending a tremor through the whole mech. Doc twisted himself and the mech back around as a warning klaxon signaled him that the shot had blasted nearly a ton of armor from the Penetrator's limb. Malicious Intent by Michael A. Stackpole. While pondering the loadout for the totally non-canon and unofficial mech frog variant for the Penetrator, I couldn't help returning to the PTR-7D with its paired snub-nosed PPCs and AES systems in the arms. While the accuracy boost is nice for those PPCs, the AES systems were a big investment at 2.5 tons apiece. To make it worth it, more than one weapon should be placed into the arms. This is why, in my headcanon, the Snow Ravens got a hold of a few of these new Penetrator 7Ds and decided to do some tinkering. The PTR-7D MF was a similar loadout, but had little tweaks here and there. For example, the XL gyro was replaced with a compact gyro similar to the 8D model, and the armor coverage was boosted to 14 tons. 2 additional heatsinks were added, 1 in each side torso, bringing the total to 15. Those super fun snub-nosed PPCs split between the arms were left in place, but the AES systems were yanked out in favor of a clan-spec targeting computer nestled into the right torso. The accuracy boost was maintained for the PPCs and extended to the rest of the build, and it was still a ton lighter than the paired AESs. The PPCs were bolstered with 4 clan-spec ER medium lasers split between the side torsos, which also benefited from that targeting computer. Finally, because it's fun, an anti-missile system was installed into the open-head critical and fed from a single ton of ammunition set into the right torso. While the Penetrator will never fully escape the ravages of heat generation, the MF could pull off an alpha strike on the run and end up at 12 heat, which is not quite in emergency shutdown territory, but it will make the next actions a little bit more troublesome. In the right moment, with the right target, that's a possible 48 damage at -1 accuracy at short range, in pretty big chunks, which is good. If you'd like to give the Penetrator 7D MF a try, I've included the record sheet and Alpha Strike card in a free Dropbox link down in the video notes below. If it's awesome, come back and let me know. If it dies on turn 3 without doing any damage, you keep that info to yourself. Below him, the Goliath again fired into its rear arc with the Gauss rifle. The Argent projectile drilled into the right side of the Penetrator's chest, scattering armor like fragments of shattered crystal. The Penetrator faltered for a second, then came on trailing bits and pieces of broken armor plating. Stalking forward, the Penetrator's pulse lasers blazed away at the larger BattleMech. The energy needles stabbed through deep into the Goliath's heart. Galen saw the large mech shudder, then stagger to its left. Its left shoulder hit the north side of the crevice wall, and then the mech rebounded to the right and its legs collapsed beneath it, giving Galen all the classical indications of a total gyroscope failure. The mech crashed down on the ledge, bouncing once, then teetering on the edge before the stony ledge lip crumbled beneath it. Assumption of Risk by Michael A. Stackpole. So why do we love the Penetrator? This is an interesting question because I've yet to come across anyone who doesn't like the mech once you remind them that it exists. It's a battle mech that has consistently performed, but perhaps has struggled to become a headliner in among the other TRO 3055 mechs that get lost in the chaos of the era. Available intel suggests that production lines on Talon are working to make as many Penetrator 8Ds as possible to reinforce the Fed Sun's armed forces following the fight for New Avalon. I'd expect to see the mech much more often in the region as we march further into the IlClan era. Before we wrap things up, I do want to point out one more Mechwarrior who fielded a PTR 4D Penetrator. Consider it a little reward for those of you true believers who stuck around. Hauptmann Caradoc Trevenna earned fame among the 10th Sky Rangers on Coventry in 3058 when the Jade Falcons showed up for a scrap. Forced to fight a delaying guerrilla campaign while waiting for reinforcements, Doc Trevenna took advantage of the Penetrator's all-energy loadout to keep pressure on the enemy. It was reported that his company was able to keep the Falcon force 3 times their number bogged down and unable to reinforce their control of the planet. While his Penetrator did eventually get so damaged that he had to swap it out for a CN-9D Centurion, Doc Trevenna, and more importantly his goatee, was able to make the clanners pay for every inch of territory they tried to take. I'm curious what you think about this plucky 75-tonner. Is it a seriously underrated design lost in the fray, or are the heat issues just too much to bear? Is there a variant that you have had luck with on the battlefield? Please let me know in the comments and we'll keep the discussion going. Thanks as always for coming out today. If you think the video deserves it and you want to show your support, the easiest way to do that is to hit the like button, subscribe, and even leave a comment. All of these things make the YouTube algorithm happy, and it helps build our community. If you want to go one step further, direct support through Ko-fi is ideal, and the link is in the video notes. Though YouTube channel memberships are still a thing, it's nice not to have to rely entirely on Google's good graces moving forward. No matter what, it is appreciated. Without strong community support, this would not be possible. If you'd like to join the nonsense and even share your own painted battle mechs and even see them in a video someday, join the Discord server where people get a heads up about what's coming up next and have a chance to chat about all things BattleTech. With that, I'll say thanks again for coming out, and please go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.